Hey guys, I'm April from Giggle Glitter Graphics, and today I'm going to show you how I assembled the signature and the cover, as well as how I collaged the cover of my butterfly journal. I'm going to use different papers today, but the process will be the same. So to start off, I have gathered a bunch of papers that I want to put into my single signature. I had about 16 pages in my butterfly journal. So I think I have about that many here. I'm using a combination of my flower collage printables as well as my vintage collage printables. You can find links to those in the description down below if you like how these look. Otherwise, you can grab any papers that you want to do, scrapbook paper, printable papers, regular paper. Just grab what you have on hand. It doesn't matter what you use. So I've already folded my pages, and some of them I just folded right in half, like these, and some I got a little clever with. Let's put this to the side here, like these, where I liked how this flower looked, so I folded it so that this will be the center, and I'll have this cute little flap here on one side, and then I folded this over so I can make this into a flip or something later, or I'll fold it over and make it a pocket. I'm not really sure. It'll be something sometime. so I got that one, and this one I did as a pull out. So again, I wanted to preserve her face, so I folded here. This will be the center of the book. I have a small piece on this side to work with, and then this folds in, and then on this side I had the bird, so I just kind of folded it so that I can have both of those things still be seen. So just an idea how to play with some of the imagery if you've got more complicated papers. Other than that, everything else here is, I've got some graph paper folded in half. This one, I had done some stamping, used it as a backer paper. I like that. I like the colors. That's gonna go in. This is another piece of graph paper. That same thing, I folded it to go in the center and then did a little fold over. It's pretty white, but I will dirty it up sometime later. Some lined school paper here, folded it up to make a pocket. So I just went like that, and then this will go in right like this. And this is the fanciest thing I did. This is just a envelope from some mail that I got. And I took a piece of notebook paper and just glued it to the tab. And then on this side, I folded up the extra. Now I'll definitely add some collage work or something onto this to firm it up and do something interesting, or even just add a piece of paper. But for now, this is enough to get it into my journal. So really quickly, I'm going to go over how I assemble my signature, and I just go back and forth. So I'm going to pick what I want to see when I first open the book. And I like this big poppy, I think it's a poppy flower. I'm not a good flower person. And I'm going to kind of alternate back and forth. Oh, this came out of that Smash book you guys told me to disassemble. The metal ring came out super easy, and I have all of those. So I've pulled a piece of that. I like the colors on this as well. So, all right. So back on task. I'm going to kind of alternate back and forth between printed papers and not printed papers, and then just kind of see where that gets me. I think maybe let's grab one of these, get that kind of landscape. I like the graph paper there. And then let's do one of these fun little funky folded ones right there. And I'm just ping-ponging back and forth, back and forth. And I'm trying to kind of alternate. So this is all folded up fun. So this will be a little more flat. And then let's go regular paper. There's that. And I like to put like a flat, something simple in the middle. But usually, there, let's flip this one around. I like this kind of old-timey, this old photo with the lake and the trees. That's pretty. So I'm gonna use that there. All right, let's fold this in half. Everything is already creased. All right, let's see what we got here. and just give it kind of a flip through. So I can see if I like how everything is coming together. I think you could definitely pack a few more pages into this. You can see that this did not get incredibly huge. So if you don't mind it getting quite a bit bigger and you want lots more paper, maybe sort of journal on or things like that. I do a lot of collage work, so I'm not too worried. You can pack some more papers into this. Just be aware that it is going to kind of alligator out on the side, but you can trim that off. I'll show you that in a second. So I'm not unhappy with this little kind of flip through here. I don't see anything that I really dislike, so I'm just going to work with this just like this. So there we go. It's kind of neaten it all up. Now these are uneven on this side. You can kind of grab your paper trimmer and just trim that up if that bothers you. I'm going to leave it all raggedy. I did not trim mine off whenever I did this book, and it came out just fine. By the time you add trims and things, you won't really notice that anyway. So the next step, we are going to work on the cover. Now most of these papers are 8.5 by 11, all of the printables are, and everything else is smaller or maybe just slightly taller. These will stick out of the top of the journal, and I don't mind that, and I can also cut them off if they bother me later. But for now, I like them peeking up there, so I'm going to leave it. So with that in mind, this is 8.5 by 11 papers folded in half. I have grabbed a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock, and I'm going to cut this so that it will accommodate whatever height that I want. Now I see this little piece of graph paper is poking up a bit. If I wanted to kind of shift it a little more middling and then center that up. Whoop. And that way just the envelope is poking up out of the top. That is how I like it. You can place yours however you want. And then I'm going to make a little mark here with, I have a pen right here. Make a little mark that's just a little bit bigger than the entire height of my signature. And I'm going to grab my paper trimmer and I'm going to cut my 12 by 12 cardstock down. Now you could fold this up and have a pocket on the inside. That is also an option, but for this today with the collage work, I'm just going to keep mine flat. But it's always nice to know what your options are for the future. All right, so now I have my 12-inch by whatever this height is, piece of cardstock. And we're gonna start the collage work. Now this is definitely wide enough that when I fold it in half, it is going to hold my signatures. If you're not sure, you can always measure and cut your papers down a little bit if they're not going to fit inside this 12 by 12 piece, or this 12-inch wide piece. So to decorate the outside, I have printed off some more sheets. I printed a floral paper and a couple of pages of the journaling cards, but I printed them right on. These are the vintage collage journaling cards that I have in my shop. And I printed them on paper so that I could use them to collage with. I want to collage with a collage. Now on my butterfly journal, I used dictionary pages to collage with, and I am going to grab some of those, and I'm also going to grab some packing paper. So I've got, this is pretty thin packing paper. It came in something I ordered online and I saved it. Any kind of brown paper, paper bag, that kind of thing will do. And you can mix anything you like for your collage work on the front. Grab some scrapbook paper and mix that with some coffee dyed paper, or kind of mix with patterned and not patterned so that you can, or small text pattern, just mix up the textures so that you get kind of this patchwork effect. All right, so from here, I'm just gonna start tearing paper and gluing it on. Now, one thing you might want to think about is if there is an image or something like that. Here I picked kind of this double butterfly piece and I put that on the center. This is a cluster I added on later, and I'm not doing that today. I'm just going to do this kind of collage texture. But you can add an image to the front, you can center it and have that be the focal point on the front of your journal. And I think for me, I like her. I like this lady. So I'm just gonna kind of tear her out. There we go. And I'm going to use walnut stain distress ink today. My vintage photo is getting a little low, so we're going to go a little darker. And I didn't do a super neat job, but I'm just going to go right over that white. And I am going to ink all of the edges of all of the pieces that I tear, and that kind of gave them the separation. I did the same thing on my butterfly journal. I felt like it added another layer of texture to the collage work instead of it just being very flatted, and gave it a bunch of nice edges. So I have her, and I know I want her to be right there. And now I'm just going to start kind of building off of that. So I want some uneven edges. I ink all of the edges and just start building up my collage. I've pre-torn some of this packing paper. Maybe do something like that. And I'm just tearing paper and inking along the way. Things that are hanging off the edge, I don't worry about inking. I'm going to trim all of these edges off. So let me put her to the side for now. I am going to use her to kind of check how things are looking. But I'm going to put that piece on last. But I am going to start going ahead and gluing some of these pieces down. I'm just using my Oohoo glue stick, putting a good coating of glue right on the back of my paper, and I'm going to stick that down to my cardstock. Now my goal is to cover all of this green, but if a little bit of it shows through, because I picked a color cardstock, that's not too big of a deal. That's why I recommend using a color cardstock instead of something just white. Any other color, a tan, black, brown, anything that works with your project is going to be just fine. So I really like this big flower, and I'm going to try to kind of tear around it. There we go. And I want to place this so it kind of bridges. If you're not sure where the center is, you can always measure and give yourself a little mark so you know where the center is. I'm not too worried about with this process, and when I did my butterfly journal, I just stuck the paper down. I did not worry about things being centered up or just right. I might take a little bit of care when placing that, but overall, I think the appeal of this process is how kind of carefree it is and not worrying about exactly where everything is, because you can always even it out later with a little embellishment on the front to make things feel more balanced. So I'm going to go ahead and just commit to that. You know what? I'm going to tuck some packing paper under here and another piece of dictionary paper. So I've inked those and gone ahead and glued those down as well. And I really like how it's coming together. I'm just going to keep repeating that process by tearing paper and kind of scattering all the pieces around the cover. Just like this, and just kind of patchwork it. So dictionary paper, packing paper. It's okay if a couple of things touch. It's not a big deal. I've got this flower, this purple flower here. That's really pretty. Let's get to that. I haven't even touched my journaling cards yet. Let's see what else we have on those. Well, here, let's bring the flower up there. And I don't think the ship is going to be quite what I'm looking for. Oh, I like these trees. Let's grab those. There we go. That'll look really nice on the back. So I'm going to go ahead and ink these up. And now I'm going to fill in these other spaces with dictionary pages and packing paper. All right, so I've got my cardstock entirely covered with paper, and you can see I've got overhang all the way around the edges, and I'm just going to trim that off. It's better to wait until your glue is completely dry before doing this step. If it's wet, the paper is a little bit soft and it can be a little hard to get a neat trim. You could use a paper trimmer for this step. That would work totally fine. In fact, let me just go ahead and grab that and do this last side with the paper trimmer. You just want to make sure that you don't trim off a whole bunch of your cardstock when you're doing that. Just pop that in there, and like that. I lost a little cardstock, but it is a little bit neater than what I did with my scissors. And there we have the outside cover. Now, if you see anything loose, you can always glue it down. Things might pop up when we fold this. It's no big deal, but I'm super excited about this one. This is really cute. So now we have the inside. You can either repeat that process on the inside, or you can do something a little different. On my butterfly journal, I just did dictionary pages on the inside, and I just did them straight. And I'm gonna go ahead and do that process again for this one. So I just grabbed a few pages and just kind of layered them on like this. So I'm going to go ahead and just do this. I don't think I'm going to ink the edges on these. You certainly could. You can use other papers, anything you want on the inside. I'm just going to go with my Italian and English dictionary. Got it all trimmed up, and now I'm going to use my ink all around the edges just to kind of finish it off. I like the look of that, especially for this project. Now, before we move on, you are going to want to let this dry really, really well. You could also optionally go to the sewing machine and do some stitching around the edge. I'm not going to do that on this one, but I did do that. I did a quick zigzag stitch all the way around the edge on my butterfly journal. But for this one, we're going to keep it simple for the very beginner friendly. But if you have a sewing machine and you're not afraid to use it, get in there. Put some stitching on the cover. Especially with this kind of collage cover, it's very forgiving. All right, my cover is all dry, and I'm ready to get this folded and get my pages attached to the inside. So I'm just gonna straight up just fold this right in half. It's going to be a little stiff. I did use it was a kind of a medium weight cardstock. So, and then with all this paper glued on the outside, it's going to be a little rigid, but I'm just folding it right over, lining it up as best I can, and giving it a crease. And then taking my bone folder, or you can use the back of your scissors or some other rigid object, and just give that a really nice hard crease. And this actually creased really nicely. I think I have just a little bit of paper popping up here. So if you have some paper popping up, just grab your glue and stick it back down. It'll be just fine. Collage is very forgiving. I'm gonna check the inside, and this looks pretty good. There's a little bit of buckling in here. That's totally normal. I wouldn't worry about it. You can give it a little smooth, but once you've decorated the inside, you won't notice if something has popped up a little bit. Now, if you have a loose edge, please do glue that down. I don't have any loose corners, so this is good to go. I'm very pleased with how that centered up on the cover. That is really pretty. So now I'm going to grab my pages, and while I was working on the cover, I second guessed myself and decided to add some dyed paper in. These were left over from making my bee journal, and they were coffee dyed and dyed with yellow food coloring. I thought they would be a really pretty addition. So I'm just going to kind of pop these in here and there. There was a lot of pattern going on in here, and I felt like this needed kind of like an eyeball break every once in a while. So I'll just find a place for these. So it's 3 more pages I'm putting in. That looks good. And let's see here. Oh, that's a good place for another one. All right, so I've added those in. They stick out a little bit. Let me see how this fits inside of here. Everything's fitting, nice and neat, plenty of room, so no need to trim any of those added papers. Now I'm going to show you how to attach the signature into your cover. The easiest way and the simplest way, but also the not quite as secure way, is to grab some kind of ribbon or string or elastic or something like that. Just tuck your pages in, go and find the middle, which is here somewhere. There we go. Right in the middle, put that in, and then give it a tie. You can tie it at the top, you can tie it on the side, but you can tie this in. Now, I have this big envelope sticking up, so that makes this method a little trickier, and I'm going to show you how to sew these in, so that's not a concern for me. But normally, let's pop that envelope. Let me pull it out. We'll just center it up a little bit. So normally, there we go. It would just kind of pull right out of the corners. So that is a quick, easy way to attach this inside, and then you can add and remove pages later, but it is not quite as tight. Things might move around inside after that's tied. But if you don't want to sew, you don't have a bookbinding kit, which I'll show you in a minute, then by all means, go with that method. Now I am going to stitch mine in, and I'm going to do that with making a little template for the holes and then stitching it with a bookbinding kit. And I will put a link to this kit. It is on Amazon. I am an Amazon affiliate, so if you purchase the kit through the link, I might earn a small commission. But it is a great kit. It has lots of thread colors to pick from. It came with several needles. I actually got 2 packs of needles in mine. I think that was a mistake. But I'm just gonna grab this needle, it's pretty large, and then pick a string that I think is gonna look good with this journal. And I'm actually thinking this coppery one, I've never used this one, might be really pretty in here. So I'm gonna go with that. There are also several little awls in here that you can use to poke the holes. So I'm gonna grab one of those as well. So to line up our holes, the first thing I did is I cut a strip of paper. The width doesn't matter too much. This is probably about 1.5 inches wide. I cut it to the same width as my cover. And now, sitting the cover to the side, I'm just going to fold that in half here. Give that a crease. Fold it in half again. And fold it in half again. So that's 3 folds, half, half, and half. Now unfold it and fold it in half, long ways. Now I'm gonna grab a pen, I have one right here, and I'm gonna find where the top 2 creases meet. I'm going to find where the center crease meets that middle line, and I'm gonna find where the bottom crease meets the middle line. I usually do this with graph paper because then you have like the squares and it really helps line things up. You're gonna have some extra creases. There's an extra crease there and an extra crease there. Just disregard those creases. You don't need them. So we're doing the middle crease, the top crease, and which I actually missed. I knew that looked kind of off. There we go. Let me grab a little ink and that'll highlight those creases for you a little bit so you could see them better. So we've got the top crease there. We've got, I just grabbed this scrap of paper off the table and figured, oh, that'll work just fine. I don't need to use a new piece of graph paper. And that was a mistake. There we go. And then let's highlight, there's the other creases. There's like extra little, from folding it over so many times, you've got these extra creases. There we go. Let me show you exactly what's going on. And then there's a crease that runs right down the middle. So I have taken the top crease, the middle crease, and the bottom crease. And we are disregarding, fancy erasable pen. There we go. We're disregarding these extra creases in between. Now, this is for a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. There are other variations of stitching it in where you can use more holes. So by all means, hit YouTube and explore those options. But today we are just doing 3 holes to sew our signature into the journal. So now we have our template set up. It does fold in half with the dots on the inside because we're going to use that as a guide to poke our holes. And I am going to grab my cover and demonstrate. This just sits right inside of here. And you have 3 evenly spaced dots for 3 evenly spaced holes. And we're gonna go ahead and punch those. So I find this a little easier to do on a raised surface. I have some cardboard I glued together around here somewhere, and I seem to have misplaced it where I can either stab straight down into it or go to the side, but it's missing. So I grabbed my dictionary here that I've been pulling pages out of. I'm lining this up right in the crease. I'm going to sit it on my surface, and then I'm going to push sideways. I'm going to push through with this awl. And you can use a needle if you don't have a book binding kit, but any kind of sharp object, and poke through. Please be careful. Don't poke yourself. If you have trouble keeping the template straight, you can grab paper clips or binder clips just to kind of secure it. And then I'm just going to push straight through and pop that right like that. There's 1, 2, and the last one. I'm going to flip this over just because I'm right-handed and this is less awkward for me. And 3. So we've got our 3 holes, and now we are going to punch 3 holes to line up with these right through our signature. So to prepare our signature, you're going to want to go through and make sure that all of the pages are where you want them. So make sure things are, if you want things a little higher, a little lower, in the center. You just want to make sure that they are sitting where they should sit inside of the journal. So I'm going to give this a quick little flip through. I like that, but here, this has gotten kind of all crazy from when I was pulling things around in there. There we go. My envelope looks good. And that's our center page. So that looks really good. I'm gonna give these kind of a sharp crease. I don't know if this really helps. This is just me doing my thing. There we go. Get that down nice and tight as possible. And again, you still have time here. If you want to trim off some of the excess, you can. I like this crazy little uneven edge. I think it adds character, so we're going to keep it. Now I've got some binder clips here. You can use giant paper clips. You can use any kind of clipping device to hold your pages together. And I need to find the middle again. There's my middle. And I'm going to clip these all together. I'm going to go here. That should hit most of them. If you have different sizes of things like I do, sometimes it's hard to find a spot that kind of clips everything all together. But that should have caught just about everything. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And let's see, I think I'm going to have to go on the bottom again. So I'm just going to clip right here because I've got that envelope poking out the top. If you don't have crazy things sticking out the top, you can clip top and bottom. And then that is going to keep everything nice and tight together where it belongs while we're punching our holes. So you just check it, make sure nothing is buckling or acting weird. Mine looks really good. So we are ready to move to the next step, which is use our template again and center this up in here. Now I sized mine to the size of my cover. So this is going to be a little bigger because our cover is a little bigger. You can see it's a little bit taller. So just center it up as best you can. I always leave a little extra space on my cover for this reason. That way there's some wiggle room up and down to fit this in here. So I am going to center this as best I can, grab my raised surface. And you can also, again, if you have trouble keeping your template stable, you can clip your template in as well. And then I'm just gonna right through the same holes with my awl, I am gonna punch all the way through. And this might be a little tough depending how many pages you have. And I'm gonna get a really nice hole in there. Don't be too aggressive, but I found if I am too wimpy with it, then I have some trouble getting my needle through later. So nice big hole. And the last one. There we go. And we can pull that template out and you can either save it for another day or throw it away or add it to your scrap pile. Now that we have our holes punched, our next step is to use a string or cord. This is a waxed cord that came in my bookbinding kit. You can use embroidery floss, you can use other types of cotton cording that are heavy duty enough to hold up. You don't want it to be too thin like thread because that will kind of slice through your pages and things, where something of larger kind of embroidery thread size will work. I highly recommend the waxed bookbinding thread, but these are junk journals, so use what you have on hand. And I'm going to use 3 widths, so I'm just going to kind of hold it 1, 2, 3. And I think I'm going to do some extra just to have a long tie in case I want to add on something else. So I'm going to do 4. 3 should be good. 4 is extra for like a large bow or to hang charms off of, that kind of a thing. This is probably going to leave a lot extra, but I'd rather have a lot extra than not enough. I'm going to thread my needle, which is pretty easy with this wax thread, I say, and then fail. There we go. Now my clips are still on my signature. Now there's 2 ways to do this. You can have your bow on or knot on the inside, or you can have your knot on the outside. On my butterfly journal, I opted to have the knot on the outside. I just tied it in a bow and I left it. You can also hang charms or buttons or other things off of it and make kind of a dangly tassel situation if you have that on the outside. And you can also do the same thing on the inside, the bow right in the middle. I think I'm gonna go with my bow on the outside again. So I have to start on the outside if I want the ends of my thread to be on the outside. If you'd like it on the inside, then start from the inside. So I'm gonna poke through the cover. And then I am going to go through the center hole of my signature. And I had nice big holes, so this is popping right through for me. If you're having trouble, if it just does not want to go through, and take a look at your holes, and you can always put that all back through. Now I'm going to go up to the top hole. I'm going to go through here and through the top hole on my cover. Pull that through. Got a little caught up. There we go. Pull that nice and tight. From here, I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom hole. Through there, through my cover, through the signature. Again, pull that nice and tight. There's my little tail. And then we're gonna go back in through the middle. So right here, and when you go back through the middle, try to be careful not to go through this thread that's already there. And you'll know what I mean if you do it. Sometimes your needle can go right through the thread and it kind of splits it and it makes it difficult to work with. It's not the end of the world, but it's also a little bit of a hassle. All right, so I've got all my strings through. I've pulled my needle off. I've got some super long tails here. They're probably too long. Like I said, 3 widths of your journal or heights of your journal is probably sufficient, but I went a little extra. So I've got my main string coming down. I'm pulling, pulling, pulling. I'm checking to make sure that we're tight on the inside and tight on the outside. I want these strings to be on either side. So if they're both on the same side, tuck one underneath so that they are on opposite sides and tie a knot. 1, 2. If you're using wax thread, you can kind of squash it down. I'm using the back of my scissors, and it really, that wax kind of mushes together a little bit. And then from here, I'm just gonna tie a cute little bow. And I'm gonna, let's see how long these tails are. They are fairly long, so I'm going to trim these up a little bit, and I'm going to leave them long enough that they just get to the bottom of the journal. So I'll trim it there, and that way if I want to add some charms or something, I have enough to work with, but it's not so much that it's hanging like way down here. I don't like having it in the way when I go to put it on the shelf. And that's it. You can take the binder clips off or whatever you use to secure your pages. And you have done it. You've made your very first or second or third or however many journals. This is a super easy project. I hope if you're a beginner, you will try this project. The collage work, I think, is just visually beautiful and an easy beginner art project for anybody to do. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm excited to start working on this journal. I think this is gonna be my anything goes journal. I'm gonna put anything that appeals to me in here. I'm just gonna go nuts, no real theme. As always, I thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.